Welcome to the Unstoppable Success podcast, where we spotlight visionary leaders who have mastered the art of growth, purpose, and powerful connections. I'm your host, Jacqueline Strominger, connector, high performance coach, and creator of the Leap to Your Success framework and 2 Steps to Yes. Each week, we dive into bold insights, real conversations, and powerful strategies to fuel your growth, deepen your relationships, and ignite transformational momentum. And why? Because you were meant to be unstoppable. Now, let's leap into the podcast. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to an amazing episode of Leap to Lead, where we help elevate your connections, increase your courage, and create greater impact. I am your host, Jacqueline Strominger, and today I have the absolute pleasure of having on as a guest Al Kushner. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Al. So, Al is a LinkedIn expert dedicated to empowering professionals and businesses to excel. Drawing on his extensive experience and innovative strategies, Al helps individuals at all levels amplify their brand, build authentic connections, and achieve measurable success. His practical insights make LinkedIn a powerful tool for driving growth and enhancing professional impact. And we are all about helping our leaders and our professionals create greater impact. So welcome to the podcast, Al. How are you?
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So let's kind of like figure this out. How did you get into using LinkedIn so much and becoming an expert?
Well, I've been on the platform for over 2 decades, so I would say that since the inception, it was just part of my strategy to use for outreach. It's an awesome social media platform, and ever since Microsoft took over, it's really expanded tremendously. I think there's over 900 million users, or a billion, I guess. It's pretty, impressive, you would say, compared to other platforms. And it's all about businesses,
Yeah.
and reaching out to people who are, my clientele, I would say,
All right.
entrepreneurs and people, professionals. And I'm excited to, have a book that could help meld both AI and LinkedIn together. And that's the first of
Right.
its kind. So I think that's rather unique.
That is rather unique. And so, obviously melding AI in with LinkedIn, you know, some people think AI just came out like last year, but it's actually been around quite a lot longer. So how long have you been actually using AI?
Well, I would say for the past couple of years, and it's really developed since its inception. So, and the tools and the software has been incredible and changing. So, I really embraced it and really made a difference in my outreach and my ability to create content that was incredible. And I'm really grateful to be, I would say, in this time period
Okay.
to take advantage of it, you might say.
Right. All right. So do you have a favorite platform that you use for AI?
Well, there are several. What comes to mind, of course, is ChatGPT, as you know, which is a very
Mhm.
popular platform. I also like to use Grammarly. A few others. I have a whole resources in my book talking about that. But I think that's a good starting point for most people, is to kind of get familiar with it and see how they're comfortable with using this technology.
Right. It's true. So when you're thinking about like beginner, or the novice, intermediate, advanced, is there one platform that you would say, like, if you've been using it, that you're more advanced? Like, this is a better one to, or versus like ChatGPT, which I feel like everybody knows.
Yeah, well, there are various platforms out there. I've been using ChatGPT, which is, always changing and evolving,
Right.
which is why it wasn't like what is originally last year. So it really has become very competitive compared to the other types of platforms, where you can create things like images, for products. I mean, that's incredible. Come up with a book jacket, it's really something that has not been done before. So I think it really is something worth considering, as a mainstay.
All
And
right. So, being a LinkedIn expert and using it, I'd love to hear, and I know our listeners would love this, is that how if you could give somebody like just 5 tips on using LinkedIn for leadership, what
Very
would
simple. Focus in on optimizing your profile, because the fact is that you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And whoever you're going to have any outreach, they're going to look at your profile. And if it's not optimized, I mean, you're going to fall flat. And using AI, it will help find, for example, keywords to use in your title that are SEO optimized. So you can be found by people who may be interested in your services. Have a professional headshot taken that represents who you are. Have it recent within the past 6 months, I think is a good idea. I would also focus in on the background as well, because that also conveys some of the things that you want to share with people who are you connecting with. And so those just the top things that come to mind right there. A lot more, of course, but
and so as a leader, some people talk about, you know, being able to use it obviously beyond obviously just searching for a job, and obviously they want to connect. But how do you help people use it with that's not spammy?
well, it's again goes back to your profile itself, and that really is going to make a difference. I mean, if you're someone that has a profile that's connotating sales and marketing, sometimes that could also become you know it's what the person can expect if they're going to connect with you. They're going to be sold, they're going to be
Mhm.
pitch slapped, as they say. And that's not you don't want to do that. All right, so you really have to really have a profile that really comes across as being an educator and a thought leader, which includes articles that you've written, includes any newsletters you've created, perhaps videos that are educational. Should it be all part of your profile before you do any type of outreach? Because that's going to make a difference. And if you do, once you've completed that and do decide to do outreach, I would recommend following the individuals that you want to connect with first, and if they post, you'll be alerted when they're posting and reply to that post, with some comments that give meaning to it.
Right. And I think that's actually a huge point, is obviously commenting and giving meaning. So I guess one of the things that I think a lot of people would love to know about too is the algorithm basically of, how it all works really with LinkedIn. We all think about how they're always changing, right? So what are your top 10 or top 5 things you could say to somebody to help them get the algorithms to work better for them?
Well, off the top of my mind comes video. If you are posting videos, you are definitely getting some love from the algorithm. And ideally, the videos should be anywhere from 60 to 90 seconds. And if you create the videos and post on a regular basis, you'll find you get a lot more views, a lot more interest, and set yourself apart really from the competition, which is most of them are just doing text post. So you really are making a difference if you do post videos.
And sorry, so posting videos, what else?
Oh, well, follow influencers, for example. And when you do that, you'll be notified when they do post. And then if you can reply to those influences within the first 10 or 15 minutes, depending how popular they are, and you post first, you'll most likely get the advantage of the people who are just responding to the post later on, but your post will be on the top. So people will see that first. And the key thing is when you're posting is that reply other than thanks for sharing. You want to be a little more descriptive. So a lot of times you can use AI technology to take advantage of the post, copy and paste that post into, let's say, ChatGPT, and come up with a favorable response that amplifies that influencer's message.
Mhm.
That's really going to make a difference. It's going to be informative. Maybe ask a question or two. I mean, these are things that are going to help get the algorithm to make that post possibly viral. And what's even better is that the influencer may decide to recognize you and say, well, maybe I'll accept that invitation after all. And that's something that's going to make a difference.
So define to me what it means to be an influencer on LinkedIn. Like, what's the
Oh,
characteristics? Like, how many followers? How many, what's the number?
well, obviously, any number that has 6 digits in it, you're going to find obviously to be impressive, to say the least, and or 1 million would be obviously ideal. Examples of influencers, you can look at Guy Kawasaki perhaps, and Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean, just examples. These are individuals that have taken advantage of the platform and increased their amount of followers tremendously over the years. So certainly when they do post, it gets noticed. And
Right.
that's an example of an influencer.
So you said you obviously been using the platform for a long time. Have you done, have you looked at other platforms that, that are similar in business, or there's I know there are a couple of them that, and or you just decided to stay on LinkedIn?
I just decided to stick to what I know best. I mean, the fact is that if you're going to go business to business, there is no other platform out there, simply put, that has the range, the ability, the amount of people on there is just impressive. Plus, Microsoft. I mean, it's they're running the show. It's a fairly large company, so they are really good at what they do, and in creating a platform that really does a great outreach.
So it does. It actually really does a great outreach. So talk to me, how do you work with your clients? And what do most people come to you for?
Well, first thing, a lot of them I do one-on-one, optimize their profile. We look for select keywords. We look for ideas to create newsletters, to create content, to establish themselves as a thought leader. I really work hard on getting a profile optimized in a way that whoever decides to connect will accept a connection based on, the information that's in the profile, because that really makes a difference. And some people really take it for granted, but just for example, if you're using to connect with someone and you have very few testimonials, if any at all, that really is really a difference. Or if you do have it, it's over 10 years old. I mean, it's not current, so people want to have current and people that maybe they're familiar with and they can connect with someone that can vouch for you. It's a third party endorsement, simply put, which is great.
Right.
So that's the first thing I focus it on. Once I've done that, then I'd look at strategies for outreach. So we look at ideas for creating newsletters, writing scripts or videos, for example, um, focusing on influencers and the best time to catch them when they post. Those are examples whereby they can maximize their exposure and gain a lot of followers and tractions that way, just off the top.
Right. Um, and so speaking of posting, is there a better time to post?
Yeah, ideally, I would say Tuesdays through Thursdays in the morning between 8 and 10 is a good time. I believe Wednesday afternoon as well, 12 and 2 seems to be a kind of a sweet spot for a lot of people. Uh,
Yeah.
and weekends, not so much, more of a drop off. But
Right.
those are kind of like ideal times to maximize exposure, I found.
Yeah, interesting. You know what I find, because I do a newsletter on LinkedIn, and I usually send mine out Tuesday or Wednesday. Because I always feel like Monday, it's like everyone's getting flooded.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody is getting flooded. And I would say by Tuesday, they're kind of getting settled in and getting their groove on. So that's an opportune time to reach out. And that really makes a difference. I've seen the views have been incredible.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about using, because LinkedIn has some, enhancements or advancements and things. And so one of those is obviously Sales Navigator. So talk to me about like the pros and cons of like, reaching out to people via Sales Navigator versus regular. I mean, as somebody who's been obviously on it for so long, I'm sure you could have some good tips about the two.
Well, obviously, it's a paid premium
Right.
version of that. I believe it's about $100 a month. Though, if you pay for the year, they give you discounts. One of the things I like about Sales Navigator is the ability to find out who's looked at your profile. So that's certainly an advantage right there. So it gives you the ability to reach out to that individual, not necessarily connect with them, but send a message to them and say, "Hey, what made you stop by my profile?" and or "Thanks for stopping by." And sometimes it could be whatever reasons, some you're a friend with someone or what have you, but it's a good way to kind of connect with someone. And also what's great about Navigator is that it allows you to find out who's been active on LinkedIn for at least past 30 days, because a lot of people, for example, are not active at all. And when you do an outreach, sometimes you don't hear back from people for months, if at all. And that also hurts you as well, because when you do an outreach and the person doesn't reply, the algorithm looks at it as a possible spammer. So
Right.
that also helps different. In addition, for example, you have a billboard on your profile, and with the Sales Navigator, it actually provides up to 5 billboards which rotate in the background. So you can use that for different aspects of your business. You can focus on marketing, maybe another one could be an email, you know, optimization. I mean, there are ways you can kind of like designate like a billboard, but it changes, which is great. So it really makes it more professional looking.
Right. Someone just said to me the other day that you can actually now put a QR code.
Well, yeah, you can. Well, you can create a QR code right now for your profile. A lot of
Yeah.
times when you do network events, for example, I'll wear a badge with my QR code on there. So people, instead of giving a business card, just snap my QR code and goes right
Right.
directly to the LinkedIn profile, which is
Right.
great because it
Right.
really gives you a lot more than just a business card. It gives you certainly an advantage when connecting with someone, especially when they see your profile is professionally optimized. They see you got recommendations, they see articles. It really is a great feature.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about the book and what got you started on writing it and
Oh, very simple. I looked out in the marketplace. I found that all the books on LinkedIn were either dated or really didn't address the issues of AI. And I said, well, why don't I create a book that does both? So that was the opportunity. I jumped at the chance, and I'm sure there'll be other books following this, but I'm the first in, so which is
right,
great. So taking
right,
advantage of it is was awesome. And the fact is that it's such a useful tool having AI technology available that it just really anyone who gets this will get so much value from that because there's nothing really available that really delves into both types
right.
of platforms.
So also being on the platform for so long, you probably have some like pet peeves on how people quote unquote LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, when people post, they kind of treat it like Facebook. For example, they'll like showcase what they've eaten or what they talked about, all this narcissistic posting, which is just ridiculous. Or they're posting an ad, which is should be not really, it should be an advertising like LinkedIn, but they're using their posting as an ad, and that's really not ideal for that platform itself. So those are just the top that come to mind right off the bat. Then, of course, when I see their profiles and I see how they haven't even filled it out or even bothered to do with it at all, so, and anyone who reaches out to me, as soon as I receive that invite, I go immediately to the profile. And if it's not up to my standards, forget it. I will not accept it.
Right.
You got to be selective.
Right. Well, you do have to be selective actually, because I think that's one of the issues that I also see with LinkedIn and what you just said actually before also about what they have in their profile. Somebody says, if their message is um if on their message it's or on their underneath their on their profile page it's very sales oriented. I'm like, oh, that's going to be a sales pitch. Oh, that's going to be a sales pitch. And I usually like, nope, decline, nope, decline, nope, decline. And unless somebody actually reaches out to me authentically, but then I still look at their profile and
Yep.
I say, this is just a slow introduction on a way for you to pitch me versus really just trying to connect on an authentic level. Yeah, there might be some business happen, but get to know them. Like there's a reason behind it.
A lot of times you can also send a message when you do reach out to someone, maybe a paragraph. You can do up to 300 characters, I believe, and try to indicate as much as you can that you just want to do an outreach for such and such reasons.
Right.
Like one person sent me the other day that they're reaching out to me because they're asking me if I needed a housekeeper. I mean, seriously? Well, I mean, exactly. They're family business. Wonder if you need a housekeeper. Like, okay, block, so this is just something that you do. So when I do an outreach, if it's a second connection, and usually they know some people that I know, sometimes I won't necessarily do that. But if I'm, let's say, going after a potential podcaster, then I would reach out to them, indicate that, hey, I've listened to your podcast and I'd love to be, a guest on your show. looking for the opportunity, and just be honest about it, and
Right.
being authentic and sincere is something that's going to win people over, I believe.
Right. Right. No, and I think sincerity and is really important versus just trying to sell somebody something is really important. It's really, really key. Um, if you're, one of the things that we really try to do here is try to help people create a greater impact. So, thinking about LinkedIn and obviously creating that authority and being and having that voice. Let's say somebody doesn't have like the recommendations. What are some of the ways that they really get that true voice and and authority out there?
Very simple. Create content that people want to read. Create a newsletter. In fact, in LinkedIn, you can do up to 5 newsletters. So take advantage of all 5 opportunities available, and niche that area. I have a newsletters, for example, for financial planners, one for accountants, one for attorneys, even one for meeting planners. And how to use LinkedIn more effectively, and that seems to be very well received. When I send it out. So I think that's important to note, is give value to whoever you're connecting with. Sometimes, for example, I'll share an ebook that I created that just really helps them, let's say, optimize their profile. In fact, on my website, linkedvantage.com, those who listen can actually access a free ebook on profile optimization for LinkedIn. So they can go ahead and do that. And I think that's very helpful. And there is nothing salesy about it. It's just information, education, be a resource. That's really what you want to do.
Right. Be that resource for people, which is so important. Um, and so when you're thinking about creating that impact, also, creating the content, how often should people be posting on LinkedIn?
Well, I would say a minimum of once a week. I would say if you're doing newsletters, at least once a week. You don't want to be more than that, but it depends. I post once a week, and I also do videos 3 times a week. So, and I post that into groups that I'm associated with, and groups are something that a lot of people don't really think that it's worthwhile, but I believe it is, because there are a lot of groups that may have your clients, and sometimes people will accept your invitation because you're part of a group. So
Hmm.
building more groups, they're really quite good. And ideally go for the most sizable groups available that you can find. Groups of at least 5 or 10,000 minimum,
Right.
or 100,000 more. It'd be a good, good starting point, I would say.
Right. Right. And so let's talk about it from the standpoint of a company. So a company has a profile out there. Obviously they want to attract more people to their profile. What are the top tips for a company to promote to get their page out there?
Well, again, they have a company page. You would focus in on things that are of interest to people who may want to use their services. You can be examples of case studies. You can also create a newsletter as well. The idea behind it is that you just want to share information that is kind of company related, not necessarily from a personal standpoint. So it could be any type of awards that were won or other things, attributes, volunteer work that they've done, which is always considered very favorable, I would say,
Hmm.
work, which is always good. So these are just types of things. And again, they can also post once a week just to really kind of share information that's of value, and just focus on not really advertising the services, but be of service to people is what I
Right.
think.
So you said you do your newsletter once a week and then you do videos 3 times a week. Are you also doing static content?
Well, I find for the most part, the algorithm likes videos,
Hmm.
and that really make a difference. The static is mostly for the newsletters because you can't really put news
Right.
video. So that's the idea of set yourself in the competition. Create a video, ideally between 60 to 90 seconds maximum. All right. And just upload it to, let's say, for example, the groups that you're part of. And you'll find you'll get a lot more traction that way. Followers, people interested, and you'll develop thought leadership a lot quicker.
Hmm. Interesting. I find this completely fascinating. So, so Al, so tell us where people can connect with you. I will obviously put the link to your book in the show notes, but what's the best way to people to connect with you? Because I honestly, people, listeners, maximizing your profile on LinkedIn is huge. I cannot stress this enough, that it is absolutely so important. And I share this because I know, in one of our networking hubs, we were talking the other day, and I asked people to take a look at their LinkedIn profile, and some people have not updated it for years. And I'm just like, guys, you got to be on this.
Yeah. Well, that's what you come across, unfortunately. And you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink, and
Right.
it's really the issue. So, but for those who want to make a difference, become a thought leader, you really got to start pretty much having your house in order. And that's the first thing, is optimize your profile. So whoever you do an outreach is going to accept your connection. And that
Right.
really makes a difference. The book will help people understand the reasons behind it, how AI technology can help create content, create information in your profile that normally you could spend hours on. It takes minutes to really come up with something that's really impactful. So I think that's a good way to do that. So yeah, go to my website, linkedvantage.com, or reach out to me on LinkedIn, of course. And if you do reach out, don't pitch slap me.
Guys, hear that? Reach out and purposely, thoughtfully connect. Don't pitch. Don't pitch slap. I love that. I don't. We all hate that. So listeners, please do me the favor and please reach out and connect with Al. And then please also do me the favor of hitting subscribe and sharing this with your friends and colleagues, because honestly, I truly believe if we can have people using LinkedIn better and not pitch slapping people, I think it'll all be a happier place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you, Al, for being a great guest. I'm Jacqueline Strominger, your host of Leap to Lead, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Unstoppable Success podcast, where we don't just talk about growth, we leap toward it. If something today lit a fire within you, sparked a new idea, or gave you the extra push forward, please don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode and podcast with a friend, colleague, or fellow high achiever. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and most importantly, connect with me, Jacqueline Strominger, at leaptoyoursuccess.com for coaching, community, and your next bold move. Keep leading with intention, keep building your network with purpose, and most of all, keep leaping, because you were meant to be unstoppable.